As the virus released in Harran continues to ravage the population and spread to more and more survivors, time begins to slip away. The virus seems to be affected in some ways by the genetics of a person, or at least to a certain degree. Based on this, as time passes, many with normal genes, we will say, continue to walk the streets with few mutations, exposed to the elements. This has created a creature who, while not very fast, is still quite effective at spreading the virus to everyone they come into contact with. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do some pure lore of the loyal cannon fodder from Dying Light, the Biter, because it essentially is just a human infected. We will also be covering its different variants, so let me know down in the comments what you think about this style of video. So, with all good stories, let's start with your standard infected. This particular Biter is very bitey. This creature is not very fast, but still has increased aggression as its brain is infested with the virus. This has affected the person on a mental level similar to rabies. In fact, if you would like to see a video discussing particularly just this virus, I will link the card in the screen and you can go watch that. Anyhow, so back to your standard Biter. While not very lethal in combat, it is possible to still get overwhelmed by these creatures as the population was converted, and as you can see, everybody got converted. The weakest version of the infected are the ones who have the gray skin. They are considered to be the slowest and will deal minimal damage to a human. Some have been seen missing arms, which is advantageous as you cannot get manhandled by them like the others can. Their clothing has become ragged after being left out in the open for an extended period of time, and this clothing native to the area is just shorts and t-shirts. Initially, after landing in Harran, these biters are extremely common, but as time passes, they tend to not show up as much. Their muscle tone is somewhat emaciated, but they're still about the same size as your standard human. The second weakest type of biter interestingly maintains its natural skin color, suggesting that the blood is still circulating in the body effectively, and their oxygen levels are still relatively high in that blood, so it's actually not suffering from hypoxia like the gray one presumably is. They move much more quickly as a result and can use both their arms to attack survivors, and as such, they're able to latch onto prey. Some have the ability to carry more than just the virus, and due to their bodies being quasi-functional, actually are toxic to survivors. These biters seemingly carry toxin-producing bacteria, and this can cause a poisoning effect to those that are bitten. While others seemingly defy biological constants, they kind of are just on fire. These burning biters, as a result, seem to be immune to fire and pose different types of danger. Fire damage. Any human grabbed will be injured with second to third degree burns. Going back to the toxic biters real quick, they also seem to emit green gas. This microorganism located in them has turned the skin yellow and black. This suggests that maybe there is some decomposition happening. Another type of biter seem to actually have their minds somewhat intact. Believe it or not, apes picking up tools was a massive leap forward in our line of thinking that led to where we are now, building skyscrapers, planes, and hopefully fusion reactors in the near future. It all started with picking up a tool. To some biters, this seems to have not been lost. Some have been seen carrying around weapons to attack survivors, but interestingly, standing far enough away, these creatures will still throw their weapon at you. Enough neurons must still be intact to understand the implications of throwing something equating to causing damage, which does not actually appear to be known to most infected. Another strong version of the biter are the ones who apparently were just blue-collar workers and who were male. These larger males were bit at some point while presumably at work, judging by their industrial uniforms or flannel and overalls. They are quite larger, and as such, they have access to more muscle that they were infected with, as well as increased aggression. They will still carry weapons in hand and swing at survivors. They tend to cause more damage to a person as such. Due to their size, they are also tougher to bring down, as it's really kind of difficult to hit something vital. Sharp weapons are preferable to cut through the muscle, as blunt might not inflict as much damage. I believe the reason for these archetypes is simply due to time. As the virus continues to damage the body, as well as just the sheer amount of exposure, the biter becomes slower and more gray. We know that the virus is a form of rabies and as such has induced brain swelling. Because of this, motor functions become more difficult the longer the body struggles with the virus. The brain pushes on the inside of the skull and can send mixed signals to the nervous tissue. So essentially, the quicker the zombie is, the more likely it is to have recently been infected. Biters are most dangerous in groups where their low speed is less of a disadvantage. Biters are also fairly quiet at a distance, and it can be difficult to spot in darker, noisier areas, but they can be heard by their heavy breathing and moaning when up close. If hit with something that causes fire, they will light on fire. Toxic biters will explode, causing a small amount of poison damage to any human in the area, and this will also attract the attention of other infected. When the night falls, the biters have a chance to mutate into something much more dangerous than their original form. They are known as night walkers. It appears that during a point when outside stimulus is detected, like a loud noise for instance, which could be caused by the roaring of biters or explosions, this could cause a stress response, forcing an adaptation, making them more lethal and quicker. Sound is actually not the only triggering event. Upon sight of a survivor running from volatiles or passing them, they can change as a response and begin changing into these nightwalkers. What does this do exactly? It allows them to run and parkour up obstacles much like virals would, which there will be a video on that later on, by the way. Nightwalkers, just like their original form, will also roar to alert volatiles in the nearby area of a survivor, which will invariably initiate a pursuit. This mutation will take a few seconds to happen, but during the process they will spasm and produce yellow vapors. This nightwalker, while not as powerful as a volatile, is adapted for darkness. Again, mentioned in my intro video, rabies does not do very well in UV light. The biters will only fully transform into nightwalkers when they spot a human, but what's interesting is they will actually transform when a person is being pursued or is actually even attempting to hide from the pursuing infected. Biters will also have a higher chance of transforming into nightwalkers if they sustain damage, or if there are any biters in the area, like a large group of them, that a person runs into while being pursued. So this particular biter does very well at night. This sudden transformation has allowed them to essentially become virals, but at night, moving them up the lethality tier. However, they are still physically weak as biters. As such, they are relatively slow in speed and maneuverability due to the degradation of their muscular structure. And again, they only really pose a threat to surviving humans should they swarm you or just outnumber you in a confined area. Although easy to fight in small numbers, nightwalkers can easily build up to dangerous numbers if you run around with a bunch of biters while being pursued, so not really advised. But unlike volatiles, they also cannot pounce. Still though, at night, while being weaker and less dangerous, they are quite similar to volatiles and will work in conjunction with them, making up for their own shortcomings. Ergo, you should keep an eye out for them and avoid them at all costs. For an out of shape person, they can run them down in the streets, and even for those who are faster, they can catch up to them on a straightaway. So in general, a safe zone surrounded by UV light is preferred at night. If you actually manage to have a UV light, they will become affected by it, much like volatiles will, maybe not as effectively, but they do appear to show that it does burn them in some degree. So UV flares also kind of serve to blind them. I know I'm talking a lot about the nightwalkers, but they are the most interesting version of biter. One of the things I will say is that their brain does carry damage from when they were infected previously and how long they've been around. So they are very aggressive due to their transformation. However, this is not always a good thing. They will not dodge attacks or break off from something damaging it. Instead, they will keep attacking, sort of like a viral, and then charge at a survivor. Their ultimate goal is to inflict as many life-threatening wounds as possible. Apart from the daytime biters and nightwalkers found in the city of Harran, many different types of variants can be found throughout based upon the climate and location in which they were infected. Shedding a little more information on the toxic biter, these infected are surrounded by a cloud of green gas. Even getting close to these creatures or even being bitten will cause a person to experience the poisoning effects by this mystery microorganism. Okay, so another variant is just kind of bizarre. The flaming biter seems to exist only to inflict damage on you as a person. This one seems to just be pure game logic, or perhaps for some reason it was just recently ignited, but this infected wanders around fully engulfed in flames. Getting near a person, they can ignite them and burn them as well. Super fun. One variant you will meet, who is more than likely sent in with a group to work quarantine, this biter wears a hazmat suit along with an oxygen tank. This suit is fully enclosed, which protects them from fire and dismemberment. Being in this suit in the heat, however, has yielded toxic variants as well that tend to exhibit the same vomiting as mentioned previously. The main weakness on this particular infected is the oxygen tank. Hitting it causes it to rupture and explode. Any survivors should be careful, however, as this can injure them in the process. The blue-collar workers in the area were not spared despite their size and strength. Wearing their rubber suits due to their employment, they are much tougher to end and are more physically hardy than a normal biter. On top of this, they will carry tools that they were more than likely using to fight the infected. Hammers, wrenches, and pipes. They will now use these against the survivors. They are really only found close to their place of previous employment. No one is actually off limits in this infection, up to and including Rice's men. Any of the gang who are caught will be turned. Seemingly the gang had a foothold in the old town, as many can be found there, and much like the blue-collar workers, they have much more health than regular biters and are tougher to put down. The first line of defense as the infection spread were the police, but many fell during the outbreak. They are usually found where they were posted trying to maintain order. The military checkpoints at the mainland bridge and certain areas of the old town town like the police station. They will use what they had on them at the time that they were infected, like police batons. They patrol the area and, much like the others, will attack survivors on sight. Near and dear to my heart, these infected would probably be me, actually. The scientists at the Forever Foundation Research Lab have succumbed to whatever they were trying to understand. Interestingly, however, they seem to be more intact due to the fact that the lab was air-conditioned, and as such, they do not show physical signs of decay and actually appear to look like virals due to the preserving nature of the building. Also, look, all I'm gonna say is, as virulent of a virus as this is, you're gonna need more than just a face mask. That's at least a biosafety level 4, which requires a suit, a decon procedure, and a vented room. But hey, that's just my observation as a fellow scientist and microbiologist. Overall, the best way to put down biters is to just swing away, Meryl. They are relatively weak, even in enhanced forms like the Nightwalker, but with a good handheld weapon, enough stamina, and determination, you can survive. One of the things that should be noted, which has been mentioned previously, is that biters are sluggish and slow. This is more than likely due to brain damage and exposure. As such, while still perfectly capable of infecting humans, if you keep your wits about you, they should be easy enough to avoid. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed. Biters are just the tip of the iceberg. I look forward to discussing the morphological changes in greater detail as to why this is the case caused by the virus later. So let me know what you thought about this video. If you noticed, I changed the style. I will drop all of my links down in the description if you're interested in Twitter, Patreon, or Discord. I'm gonna try something a little different here. Patrons, I really appreciate your donations. You should be able to see them up on screen. You guys are awesome. I will have to redo my patron tier because there's just so many people. It's getting tough to say everybody afterwards. So I'm just gonna end it there. Thank you guys. It's always appreciated. So that about wraps up this episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Leaving a like would be bro of you, and I will see y'all in the next one.